Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see from the title, today we are back again with another tier list, and today we will be ranking every single signing made under Jurgen Klopp's regime at Liverpool. So, as you guys maybe know, we've done this for a few clubs now. We've done it for United post-Fergie. We've done it for City in the Guardiola era. We've done it for Barcelona 2014 onwards. And as I say to you guys throughout each video and each one of these, the most liked comment about which team I should do next will be the next team that we kind of tackle. And last video, Liverpool was the overwhelming next team to do. And I thought, you know what? I think Jurgen Klopp's era at the club, where he effectively transformed them from a group of almost Rands and a team that had been dying to win a Premier League title for 30 years, he transformed them from that into a team that would go on to compete and dominate in both Europe and domestically in the Premier League. And of course, you look at the team that has just won the Premier League this season. Yes, Arne Slot has done a terrific job, but if we're also being real, this is a team formed by Jurgen Klopp. It is Jurgen Klopp's team, and we'll actually go on to see this summer how Arne Slot can kind of rebuild and reshape this side in his image. But this squad left over is Jurgen Klopp, and this whole era is kind of dominated by Klopp. So I thought we'd go from, what was it, 2015-16 when he took over, to last season and rank every single one of these players. And as I always tell you guys as well too, they'll be ranked between S, A, B, C, D, and F. Now that D tier that you guys are seeing there, that typically goes to players that just had no impact whatsoever at the club, whether they were there as, like, I don't know, they bought them young just to flip them for profit in a few years, players that were signed as like fourth choice goalkeepers. I just throw them in D. It doesn't mean that they're any worse or better than F or C, but if I'm being real, right, anybody who goes D, it's just, they're a little irrelevant. They didn't really make any impact whatsoever, both good or bad. And as I always say as well too, and please keep this in mind, these rankings are made relative to the Liverpool signings in this era. So a signing that ranks B tier for Liverpool might have been an A tier signing for Man United. But those Man United tiers that I made, they're relative to those Man United signings. These ones, if you're at B for Liverpool, it doesn't mean you're a B signing in general. It just means compared to the A and S tier signings that Liverpool made in this video, you couldn't stack up to them. Just keep that in mind, please, in case you see a player you really like, not as highly rated as you might think he is. It's only because I'm looking at what's above them and thinking to myself, that's a different level relative to Liverpool. But that's enough yapping. I'm sure you guys all want me to get into the video. Let's do it. The first player we're going to talk about is Joel Matip. Now, Matip, if I remember correctly, was actually brought in as a free signing from Schalke. And at Schalke, I think everybody knew that Joel Matip was a terrific center back, right? Really good center back. And when he came to Liverpool, especially for that fee, we knew that Liverpool were getting a good center back. And one thing I always rated extremely highly about Joel Matip was on the ball. This guy was like a gazelle, especially in terms of picking up the ball from his position and just gliding up the pitch, carrying it past midfielders, attackers, and getting his team playing just like that. Van Dijk next to him was, I mean, Matip could play the ball passing-wise as well too, but Van Dijk was really the diagonals, right? From left to right, right to left. Matip was almost like the guy who just like pranced out of the back, chest up, dribbling past players for fun. That was Joel Matip for you, and what a servant he was for Liverpool, alongside Virgil van Dijk, so big in their success in Europe in 2018-19. Of course, in 2017-18, to be fair, it was more Lovren, if I'm remembering correctly, but 18-19, Matip played a big part for that Liverpool team. Now, I'm going to put him at 8. And I actually think there is an argument for S, not solely, right, but a big reason for that is because of the fact he was free. Liverpool didn't pay a dime for him. That's as great an investment as you can get because you got so many years of service for him and so many brilliant years of service as well too. But when I think about who I think is going to come up at S tier, I do think they were just a little better. They were just a little more influential. They marked this Liverpool era a little more than Matip. And if I'm being honest as well too, right? You think 1920 when they won the league, it was Joe Gomez, in fact, who was playing next to Virgil van Dijk. And a big part of that is Matip did have his injury problems. And when you look at a lot of the center backs that Liverpool are employing next to Van Dijk, bar that one season that Van Dijk obviously tore his ACL, he was the constant. Gomez would have his injury problems. Konate has his injury problems. Matip would. So I think that's the only reason, really, I'm going to put Matip just at an A. But what a player, man. Honestly, when you talk about most underrated players of that era of the Premier League that we're kind of talking about right now, 15-16 to, let's say, the last 2-3 years, he is undoubtedly one of the most underrated, not disrespected, but undervalued. Like, he is so important to Liverpool and such a brilliant player as well too. So I got him at A. And the next player is almost like the core reason why Matip cannot be any higher than A, because Sadio Mane is almost as good as it gets when you talk about S-tier signings. Sadio Mane was really Jurgen Klopp's first marquee player that he brought in through the door. And at Southampton, I think everyone could see the early flashes that this guy had superstar potential. whether it was the hat trick, the quickest hat trick in Premier League history for Southampton. I think he actually destroyed Liverpool a few times for that club. Man United obviously really wanted him. I think Louis van Gaal was really keen on bringing him to the club, but no, it would be Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp who would get his signature. And from the word go, Sadio Mane and Jurgen Klopp just clicked. That game against Arsenal, his Premier League debut when they won 4-3 at the Emirates, and he scored that goal from the right-hand side, picking it up, ripping his fullback, chopping in the manner that he did, firing it in top bins with his left foot. It was like, wow, Sadio Mane has truly arrived. Everybody knew he was a great player before, but wow, the amount, like the monster that Jurgen Klopp could turn this guy into. We all kind of took a step back and said, okay, he's arrived. He's here. He's ready to take over. And the beauty of Mane as well, too, is he originally came as a right winger. That's how he played at Southampton. But obviously, a guy we'll speak about very, very soon, Mohamed Salah, came into the fray. And Sadio Mane was pushed out from the right to the left. But Sadio Mane is so brilliant. And one thing I really like about him is the fact that whether he was playing on the left or whether he was playing on the right, he was so devastatingly brilliant on either side. And I feel like that's a lost art when you talk about wingers these days. I grew up in an era where you had wingers who could play on the right and on the left, whether even Robin at Chelsea, everyone knows him as the guy who cuts in from the right. But at Chelsea, he plied his trade. He made his name as a guy who played on the left. Cristiano Ronaldo, we saw him on the right or the left. So I feel like that's an art these days that wingers don't really possess as much anymore. But with Sadio Mane, he could do his business on either side. And the defensive work rate that he provided, the engine, the energy, the relentlessness, the goals, the creativity, my goodness, the big game presence Sadio Mane was. Champions League games, he was there. Big Premier League deciders, he was there. My goodness, what a player. What a player. And I think it recently came out, Salah was actually speaking about Mane and basically saying that off the pitch, they really had no relationship whatsoever. Like they weren't close. And in fact, there was a little bit of iciness between the two of them, which obviously never seemed to matter because on the pitch, the two of them clicked so well and they formed 2/3 of one of the best trios the Premier League has ever seen in terms of attacking front threes. But wow, for a while, Mane and Salah on either side, it was a defense's nightmare because for 90 minutes, these two were just ripping you apart. Time after time after time. And Mane, man, I think a lot of people now look at Salah and say, yeah, he's clearly the best player of this era. And he absolutely is, right? Well, I would say him and Van Dijk. But that's not to say that every single year that the two of them were together, Salah and Mane, Salah was consistently better. I think there were years where Mane was there, and you could make the argument that it was actually Mane who was probably the best player for that respective season. Now, over the stretch of their Liverpool careers, quite obviously, Salah has never even relented below 18, 19 goals, and he's had amazing seasons as well, too. Like, you could probably say the best of Salah at Liverpool is better than the best of Mane, but there were seasons, what I'm trying to say, where I actually think Mane was maybe Liverpool's best player, period. Was it the year they won the league in 1920? My goodness. It's either that year or the year they won the Champions League. One of those, and I think it was 1920, where Sadio Mane was just an unrelenting force of nature. What a player, man. What a player. Next up, Ragnar Klavan. This, for me, is a C-tier signing. Brought in as center back depth behind the likes of Van Dijk, Lovren, and Joel Matip. And to be fair, he probably played more than you would have expected him to. Never brilliant. I wouldn't go on to say he was one of Liverpool's worst players. He wasn't particularly amazing, but decent servant for the club in the few years that he was there. And I wouldn't say he ever embarrassed himself, which I think for a C-tier signing is really all you need to be. Good deputy. Whenever he needed to be called upon, you could bring him there. But eventually, Liverpool just needed to improve on him, and they effectively did. So I'm going to give Klavan a C. Loris Karius. I mean, it has to be enough. It has to be enough. Now, I feel for Karius, right? Because that game is effectively a career killer, if we're being honest. It killed his career. It killed his spirit, his mentality. He was never the same after that game. And one thing with Karius, right, that I kind of want to stress is that entire 17-18 season, was he perfect? No, he wasn't. Like, there were errors in his game. But also, he did have performances that season where he was actually pretty good. Like, there's a reason why he started the entire year for Liverpool. It's not because he was god-awful from match day 1 to the final. He had his moments. Yes, he had the error in him. But I mean no one, and honestly, I mean no one could have gone on to predict how bad Karius would be in that final. To this day, he claims that he was concussed. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea. Give me a doctor's note, I guess. But wow, he lost Liverpool a Champions League final. If we're being absolutely honest here, he lost them that final. Real Madrid very well could have gone on to win it, no matter what. But you look at the blunder for the Karim Benzema goal, which is honestly just like a moment of sheer madness. Rolling out the ball for Benzema to just stick his foot out and intercept. Like, you'll never see that kind of goal again. Like, that's a 1 in a trillion goal. And then to repeat the trick and come up with a similar blunder like 20 minutes later when Gareth Bale from like 40 yards out, shoots speculatively right at your hands, and it falls in. Like 2 errors that as a goalkeeper, you never want to have in your career, ever. And he had them in the space of 45 minutes. He lost Liverpool that final, no matter what one of us want to say. Like, again, they might have gone on to lose it regardless, but when your goalkeeper is doing that, what more can you do, right? It was sad to see. It was hard to see, honestly, at the end of the game. Tears flowing down his face. He knew what had gone on. He knew what he had done. And he was never the same after that, right? The next summer, Alisson came to the club, completely revolutionized Liverpool, and Karius became an afterthought. And he would go on to leave Liverpool, and actually he played the Carabao Cup final for Newcastle a few years ago against Man United. But yeah, man. Look, I feel for him, but it's easily an F-tier signing. I don't think you can even argue it, bro. He probably cost Liverpool one of the biggest trophies in their history. Georginio Wijnaldum, I'm going to give... I think I'm going to give him an A-tier signing as well, too, guys. Again, you guys might think he's an S-tier, and maybe you're right. Maybe Liverpool fans will have a better idea of this one than me. But just, again, thinking about the quality of players that are coming in S-tier, I beg you guys to kind of hear me out, right? Wijnaldum was brilliant for Liverpool, and what a signing he would end up being, right? At Newcastle, he was part of that squad that were relegated in his only year there, but you could always tell with Wijnaldum that even amongst that, like, shower of shit, and let's call it what it is, that's what was going on at Newcastle those days. Like, I always compare it was like a garden full of weeds. He was maybe the one rose that was sticking out. I'll never forget the 4 goals that he scored against Norwich for Newcastle. And what's funny is that at Newcastle, he was really playing as the most advanced midfielder in that team, practically as a second striker. Like, he was their goal-scoring presence from midfield. So when Jurgen Klopp brought him to Liverpool, the question marks were kind of like, okay, is he going to perform a similar role? Because they already have Felipe Coutinho kind of playing that attacking midfield role. But no, credit to Klopp and credit to Wijnaldum for effectively transforming Wijnaldum into what was ultimately the complete box-to-box, all-action midfielder. And I really like this profile that Georginio Wijnaldum was at Liverpool, because I think every single successful team in world football needs a player like this. At Liverpool, Wijnaldum was playing alongside Henderson and he was playing alongside Fabinho. And I think Wijnaldum was kind of, and I say this specific, like, again, hear me what I'm about to say. He's not as good as the player I'm going to mention or the players I'm going to mention, but the role he filled for them is exactly that. He was ultimately the Rakitic of this team. He was ultimately the Clarence Seedorf of this team. He was just the balancer. That's kind of the way I want to describe it. He wasn't like this all-out defender. He's not the defensive midfielder. He's not the most creative midfielder. In fact, Liverpool's midfield's never really deployed that under Jurgen Klopp once Coutinho left. But he just did a little bit of everything. He filled in defensively when he needed to. He pressed like an absolute dog. Like, that Liverpool midfield press doesn't work without Georginio Wijnaldum. He popped up with the odd goal when he needed to. He created the odd chance when he needed to. He just did a little bit of everything. And I think every single successful team needs someone like Wijnaldum. Now, teams have had better versions of Wijnaldum, but to be successful, you have to have a guy like this who is just so unselfish and so willing to basically just run himself into the ground for the success of the team that, look, he might not get all the spotlight. Wijnaldum hardly ever did. But when he did, it came in clutch. No one can ever forget that cameo against Barcelona, second leg of the Champions League semifinal at Anfield, team trailing 3-0. And in fact, he tells the story. He was so upset that he was left out of the starting 11 that day that when he came on, he basically ignored Klopp's orders. He basically ignored Klopp's tactics and just kind of like went forward whenever he wanted to. And it ultimately led to Wijnaldum scoring 2 huge goals en route to one of the most historic, all-time classic comebacks in European football. Those headers, that second finish against Ter Stegen in Barcelona will live long in the memory for every Liverpool fan. Wijnaldum was just huge for this team, man. I wouldn't put him S again because I'm thinking about who's going to come next, but this was a brilliant signing from Jurgen Klopp, and he was so key to everything that team did. Next up, one of many of Liverpool's like 4th choice goalkeepers. I think this guy was manager, right? Yeah, I'm just going to put him at D, kind of like I said at the beginning. Dominik Szoboszlai, brought on a free from Chelsea, having basically never played for Chelsea's first team. He was a reserve there. He effectively became a reserve at Liverpool, went on loan a few times before ultimately going to Bournemouth. Again, I'm just going to put him at D. And now Andy Robertson. This, for me, is an S-tier signing. I think Robertson qualifies as an S-tier signing because alongside Trent Alexander-Arnold, and hear me out, I know Liverpool fans don't want to hear me say that name right now. I know he's not in the best books with you guys. But alongside Trent, Robertson formed one half of the most devastating fullback partnerships that the Premier League has ever seen. From an attacking point of view, let's face it, they are the best attacking fullback partnership the Premier League has ever seen. Robertson on the left, Trent on the right. The Prem has never seen anything like those two in terms of the way they did it. They were so unique and they were so crucial to everything Klopp did offensively. Because get this, right? when you're playing with Salah on the right and you're playing with Mane on the left, these guys at times are effectively playing as forwards. They're playing so close to goal. They're playing so narrow. They're picking up the ball in such central attacking positions that they're not really executing the role of old school touchline wingers, a la Giggs, a la Beckham. You know what I mean? They're not that kind of winger. They're goal scoring wingers. Obviously, they can do more than that, right? But hear me out, right? That's the role they were playing under Klopp. So when your wingers are playing that narrow, that inside, the fullbacks on either end are, and again, on top of that, the midfield for Liverpool has effectively no bona fide creative midfielder since Coutinho left. The creativity for Liverpool is largely coming down the flanks, and they're coming in the form of Trent on the right and Robertson on the left. And in those two, they were basically going head to head every single season, trying to outdo the other and basically become the best attacking fullback in the Prem. They were practically breaking their own records year in, year out. It was crazy. They were setting records and breaking them the next season. And although Trent is more so like the guile, right? The beautiful diagonal passes, the passes in behind, the one-time volleys on, oh wow, Trent is just a magician on the ball, right? Robertson was more so just give me the ball in space and I'm going to make that same run 100 times a game if I have to, and then I'm going to chase all the way back. He dominated the entire left flank. And in Robertson, right, they got him from Hull City. And I actually think it's one of Klopp's best bit of businesses ever because he's still at the club and the years of service he gave them was amazing. But Robertson wasn't the most technically gifted footballer. He was so far off Trent in terms of technical ability, it's not even funny. But in terms of his engine and his energy and his positivity and a little bit of nastiness as well too, which I don't have a problem with, right? Robertson just became such a threat down the wing, man. So problematic. And with Mane as well too, they had such a good partnership, man. Robertson, I have to give him S tier, man. I have to give him S tier. He came up big so many times for Liverpool. And in him and Trent, I don't think Liverpool have anywhere near the success they do without those two. Like with these two, right? There were games where you could have kind of substituted Wijnaldum for someone else. He didn't play the Champions League semifinal, for example. Matip, you've seen what Gomez did in 1920. Like, Matip was brilliant, but I think there were other players that could come in and do a great job too. With Robertson and Mane, they were so integral to Liverpool, and that's why I have them just a tier above. You couldn't replace those two. You could never, ever replace what Robertson gave you. Impossible. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'm going to put him at B tier. And this is a sad one, right? Because I remember when Ox came from Arsenal, there was a huge kind of saga going on at the time because he wanted to leave Arsenal and he was linked to Chelsea and he was linked to Liverpool. And Chelsea really, really wanted him, but it was under Antonio Conte, and Conte wanted to convert him into a right wing back. And at Arsenal, I think he had been playing more as a winger, if you guys remember. But at Liverpool, Klopp wanted to use him as a central midfielder. So eventually he effectively decided to join Liverpool. And that first season, 17-18, guys, Oxlade-Chamberlain was amazing, man. He was amazing. The long shots this guy was scoring, especially against Man City in the Champions League, how big he was in that run. Wow. Oxlade-Chamberlain, man. I feel for him, right? Because all the success Liverpool have had in the last few years, he really hasn't been too big a part of it because he had that big injury that he never really recovered from. He never came back the same. But that 17-18 season, Oxlade-Chamberlain was crucial to Liverpool's run to the Champions League final, and then ultimately they're finishing in the top four. So I'm gonna put him at B. It might actually be a little fortunate because post 17-18, let's be real, Ox didn't really do too much for them. But that first season, I think he deserves so much credit. So much credit. I won't let people disrespect that first Ox season. He was huge for them. I mean, what's understood doesn't need to be explained. Mohamed Salah. This is not only one of the best Liverpool signings ever, it's one of the best signings in the history of English football. A player that when he arrived on English shores again in 17-18, everyone wrote him off because we all knew what he did at Chelsea, or rather what he didn't do at Chelsea. He came to Chelsea, it was a huge flop, just never fit in. And you know how we are as Premier League fans. When we see you in the Premier League, it doesn't really matter how good you do somewhere else. We're always going to have that bias that, oh, you flopped in the Prem once. Who cares what you did in Serie A? But while everybody had this memory of what he had done at Chelsea, Salah was quietly going about his business, repairing his reputation in Serie A with Fiorentina first and foremost, and then with Roma, where that last season at Roma in particular, he really made a name for himself as one of the most dangerous attacking wingers in European football. So when Liverpool kind of bought him and brought him back to the Premier League for upwards of 30 million pounds, yeah, maybe the rest of the league was kind of looking at it saying, the same Salah who flopped at Chelsea, are you guys sure? But what makes this Liverpool era so brilliant is Michael Edwards and Jurgen Klopp were so, well, you know what? I say Jurgen Klopp. If you believe the rumors, Jurgen Klopp wanted Julian Brandt over Mohamed Salah, but Michael Edwards in particular was so good at identifying talent. And I think it was Ian Graham as well too, I think was part of that team. They were so good at identifying talent and kind of projecting who would go on to be huge successes in the modern Premier League. And in Mohamed Salah, that is ultimately maybe the biggest success story for Liverpool's recruitment, because that first season, he started where he went on, where he meant to go off, right? 32 goals in the first year, breaking, or I should say smashing the Premier League goals record by Cristiano Ronaldo, something of damn near 10 years earlier. Salah was so big, so impressive, so influential in those big games that first season, whether it was against City in the league, City in the Champions League, that semi-final against Roma. Wow. But for anyone who thought he was going to be a one-season wonder, he went on to do it the next year when they went on to win the Champions League. And then he went on to do it the next year after that when they went on to win the league. And then the following year after that, when they were fighting for top four, he fired them into the top four. And then the year after that, when they had a title race, and the year after that, and the year after that, and ultimately, he's probably the greatest one-season wonder we've ever seen. He doesn't stop. He's going to win his third PFA Premier League Player of the Season. I think he's going to win his third Premier League Golden Boot as well, too. Is it his third? It might be even his fourth, because he won it in 17-18. He won it in 21-22. He's going to win it again this season. He shared it with Mane and Aubameyang in 18-19. He's going to win his fourth. He's going to win his second assist record as well, too. This guy is just a statistical anomaly in terms of we have never seen a winger this consistently productive in the Premier League ever. Ever. And yes, he's playing a different role to your old school wingers, 100%. But you can't knock him for that, man. The guy is the picture of consistency in terms of output and performances year on year. And if it's not for the guy who's coming after him, who I'm going to name in a second, this is the best signing of the Jurgen Klopp era. It's either him or the next guy. But wow, Mohamed Salah, man. Do Liverpool go on to do what they've done in this era without him? Impossible for me. Like I said, formed 1/3 of the best attacking front threes the Premier League has ever seen. His record in the Champions League is ridiculous. Won him the Champions League, broke Liverpool's title duck for 30 years, did it again this year. And I think this year in particular, look, you might have a more preferential season, right? You might favor a different season, but in terms of influence this season, this year there was no Sadio Mane he was sharing the goals with. There was no Bobby Firmino. Mohamed Salah was the Liverpool attack. He was. In terms of percentage of output, Liverpool's total goals scored this season in all competitions. Has there been a player in recent memory that we can think of that contributed to such a large chunk of that percentage as Salah this season? It feels like every goal or assist Liverpool have had this season, it's come in one way, shape, or form from Salah. He has been ridiculous, and it's shown even more so in the fact that whenever he wasn't at his absolute brilliant best, namely the Champions League and namely the Carabao Cup final, Liverpool couldn't buy a win. They couldn't buy a win. They couldn't score a goal because they're that reliant on him. So Salah, I mean, how much more do I have to glaze this guy? Give him his plaudits. Salah is easily an S tier, and as is the next guy as well too, Virgil van Dijk, man. You guys understand now why I couldn't put Matip and Wijnaldum here, right? Like, it's a different level. It's a different level. These guys are the pillars of the Klopp era. These guys are incredible servants to it, but these are the pillars. Virgil van Dijk, I think he's the difference maker. Like, Salah, everything I've just said is true, but he was the one that I think made Liverpool fans start believing, oh, we're onto something special. Because with Salah, you had Coutinho, you had Mane, you had Firmino. That front four was incredible. But it was still a Liverpool team that were leaking goals, that were suspect to mistakes at the back. They weren't the strongest team. They could score goals for fun, but you could punish them as well too, until this guy came along. Virgil van Dijk transformed Liverpool Football Club. And when he made that move from Southampton for £70 million, look, we all looked at it sideways. We all looked, really, a Southampton defender going for that much? I remember people saying he's just Chris Smalling with a fade, with a ponytail. But has any player shut up his critics more quickly than Van Dijk in that first game against Everton, where he leapt highest, nodded Liverpool in front, and almost just looked at the crowd saying, yeah, I'm here. Don't worry, I got us. Van Dijk was Superman. He still is Superman. He has been the best center back in the world probably since the moment he stepped foot at Liverpool. He's arguably become one of, if not the greatest center backs in Premier League history, in world history. He's an incredible player. And similar to Salah, right? His partners switch every single season. Salah's had Firmino up front, he's had Jota up front, he's had Nunez up front, he's had Diaz up front this season. The goals don't stop coming. And with Van Dijk, he's had Lovren next to him, he's had Matip next to him, he's had Joe Gomez next to him, he's had Konate next to him. Who knows who's going to be next? The level doesn't fade. The level doesn't stoop below a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Van Dijk is ridiculous. And it's probably proofs in the pudding that the one season he was injured, look at how far down Liverpool fell. They became into a top 4 race. Every year he basically is fit, and they look like they're challenging for the title. Virgil van Dijk, man, he is the difference. Whatever the question is, he's the answer. It's as simple as that. Xherdan Shaqiri. I'm going to give Shaq a B. Really, really good role player to have in this Liverpool team, right? Really good squad player to have. At Stoke, he was kind of like one of those guys that you looked at in the league and thought to yourself, yeah, he's too good for this level. But what actually is his level? You know what it is? It's similar to Trossard at Arsenal. At Brighton, we all knew, yeah, he's a top player playing for a mid-table club, but could he make that next step up to Liverpool? And of course, Shaqiri, to be fair to him, he played at Bayern, played at Inter, but at Liverpool, man, this guy came up with some moments, right? He was never a starter. That was always Salah on the right. But that left foot is an absolute wand. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it was a lie when Oxlade-Chamberlain was asked who has the best left foot at the club. And he said, it's not Salah, it's Shaqiri. This guy was a magician, honestly. And he still is. What he's doing at Basel this season is flat out ridiculous. But wow, Shaqiri was a really good player to have along the way for Liverpool. He came up with some big moments, played huge in that game against Barcelona in the second leg when Salah was I think, suspended or out injured. Shaqiri, man, good player to have in amongst the squad. And I think whenever he was called upon, I mean, look, as a United fan, I'll say it myself, he got Jose Mourinho fired in that one game. So good player. I like Xherdan Shaqiri. Fabinho, I'm going to put S tier. Again, similar in terms of impact. When he came in, that whole midfield could breathe a little easier. He became the linchpin in midfield. Don't worry what's going on around us. I got us. And more so than just that, Fabinho on the ball was sneakily underrated as well too, man. His range of passing, his ability to dribble past players, carry the ball forward, pick those line-splitting passes, pop up with the odd big goal as well too. I'll never forget that goal against City that he scored in the league, in that big league encounter in 1920. Fabinho was just a top defensive midfielder. And look, I mean, I think they've really found a nice player in Gravenberch to kind of deputize in that role since Fabinho has left the club. But wow, he left big shoes to fill. Fabinho was a top player, gave them so many big years. I got nothing but good things to say about Fabinho. I think for a while, right, it was him and Fernandinho in terms of best defensive midfielders in the Prem. And for him, it's a kind of a shame, right? This became like a bit of a habit with Klopp players. Because of the intensity and the amount of minutes on the clock that they kind of accumulated under Klopp, they kind of burned out pretty quickly. Like Fabinho by 30-31 was washed, right? It's as simple as that. Mane by 31 was washed. Wijnaldum, he kind of lost his legs pretty quickly as well too. You look at these guys, right? They've done an incredible job at kind of maintaining their level. But for a lot of these guys, the minute they hit early 30s, they were kind of out of there, man. But Fabinho at his peak, easily one of the best defensive midfielders in the world. Easily. Naby Keita, this was a rare flop. A rare flop for Michael Edwards in Liverpool. In fact, I don't even know. Was Michael Edwards responsible for this one? I can't remember. But yeah, Keita, it just never worked out for him at Liverpool. At Leipzig, he was a top player. No question about it. He was incredible at Leipzig. But at Liverpool, the amount of injuries he faced were nasty. He was practically never available. And then towards the end as well too, like you were just looking at Naby Keita and you were just thinking to yourself, like he is so far off the, like at times I was looking at him, he looks out of shape. He doesn't look like he's capable of playing the intensity that Klopp wants to. And I think the crowning moment, or rather like the ultimate moment that spelled the end of his time at Liverpool was that shot against Real Madrid in the Champions League final, that ballooned up top corner. You just think to yourself, if maybe Thiago or Mac Allister, a player like that, was on the end of that, he might have at least got it on target. But Keita, man, for the price that they paid and how often he was injured and then the performance level anyways. Look, his debut against Bournemouth was crazy. When I watched him that first game, I was like, uh-oh, they might have a player here. But just never lived up to that moment either. For me, F-tier signing. Alisson, again, wow. What else is there to say? S-tier. Easy S-tier. Alisson. Well, when you look at Karius, right? And you look at what Alisson went on to be, I think that's all the impact you need to hear about, right? That's all you need to hear from me. Alisson took over from one of Liverpool's worst goalkeepers ever and became one of their best ones ever. He has been one of, if not the best goalkeeper in the world ever since he stepped foot at Anfield. I like Courtois as well a lot too. I think they're neck and neck for best goalkeeper in the world. But Alisson, man. You know what the word I would use to describe Alisson is? Safe. He's just a safe pair of hands. With Alisson, you never really see him making like the David De Gea-esque like camera save, like saves that you would see in like a movie. But it's almost because his anticipation and his reading as a goalkeeper of how shots are going to come at him, he almost just kind of like shifts over to catch it rather than having to dive last minute reaction. He's just a safe, dependable set of hands. And one thing I've noticed with Alisson, right? Every top goalkeeper ever that speaks about him really speaks primarily about how good he is in 1v1 situations. And it's a skill that Peter Schmeichel at Man United was basically known for, right? Especially with his technique, the star technique. He just makes himself so big and so imperious, and he rushes out of his goal at the perfect moment. And I think Alisson, in a way, is the new age Peter Schmeichel in terms of his technique. in terms of how he dominates his area on one-on-ones, man. He is so difficult to beat in those situations. He's a steady pair of hands on set pieces. He's decent on the ball. I would never say he's Ederson, but he is dependable on the ball. And I mean, clearly he's dependable when you need a goal as well, too, because let's not forget that goal last minute at the Hawthorns against West Brom, a huge goal to kind of help send Liverpool into the Champions League the following season. Alisson, man, what a goalkeeper. What a goalkeeper. And I think they've obviously signed Mamardashvili, who's going to be, well, we'll see. He'll compete with Kelleher, but whoever's taking over from him, that's a big set of gloves to kind of fill in, man. That's going to be tough because Alisson has been huge for Liverpool. S tier easy. Adrian, I don't know, guys. You might think I'm harsh here. I think he's an F tier signing as well. And I'll tell you why I think he's F tier. I think he's F tier because I can never forget that 1920 Liverpool team who stormed the Premier League in maybe the most dominant fashion we've ever seen and looked on course to probably repeat in the Champions League as well, too. And in the moment where Alisson was injured, which is ultimately where you just need your backup to be a safe pair of hands, Adrian was anything but. The two games I'll never forget Adrian playing for Liverpool. First and foremost was against Aston Villa when they lost 7-2, where he was shocking. And then second was at home to Atletico Madrid, where, look, Liverpool should have probably buried that game anyways. And I'm not taking anything away from Atleti, but come on, man. Come on. You look at Adrian in that tie. Adrian cost Liverpool the double that year, or at least he cost them a good chance at it. Who knows if they would have gone on to beat that ridiculous Bayern Munich team that year. But he cost them a chance to even play against them, bro. That tie was decided by Adrian. So that's why I have him at F, right? During his time at Liverpool, yes, he had some good games. I'm not going to disagree with that. Most of the time, he wasn't even needed. But, and to be fair to him, right? If I'm being absolutely fair, he was big in that penalty shootout against Chelsea when they won the Super Cup. But I cannot forget those moments against Villa and against Atleti. And for that reason, maybe D would be a little fairer, but I got to give him an F, man. He cost Liverpool that Champions League. Easy. Here we got another D. Vandenberg. I'm going to give Vandenberg a high D because they bought him for practically nothing, sold him for like upwards of 25, 26 million pounds to Brentford after he never played for them. So decent business there. Minamino, I'm going to put Minamino at a C. Again, brought in as a backup. I don't think he was as good as Shaqiri in terms of being a backup. But again, I fell for him because you're asking to displace Salah, Firmino, and Mane. It's never going to happen, especially in the form that they were in. But to be fair to Minamino, he was kind of like a Carabao Cup specialist for them, right? That run that they made in, what was it, 21-22? I think it was that year. He was big for them, man. He was really, really big for them. Was it 21-22 or was it 23-24? One of those two seasons. I think it was 21-22. Minamino came up huge with some big goals en route to that Carabao Cup final. Never really complained, never really kicked up a fuss. He was happy to kind of play his role. Eventually moved on to Monaco, where actually, guys, he's been really, really good for Monaco. I keep up with Liga. Minamino has really found a nice role for him at Monaco. And I think that's really what it is, right? Liverpool was maybe too high a level for him to be commanding starts consistently. But that doesn't make him a bad player. And the proof's in the pudding at Monaco. So I'll give him a C. Put D for this guy. This one was, what's his name? Ben Davies, right? He came alongside Kabak. I don't think he ever played. They got him from Preston, right? I can't remember him ever playing for the first team. Kabak. It was him and Nat Phillips that one year, right? Where like Van Dijk and Gomez and Matip were all out for the season. And it was effectively Kabak on loan from Schalke and Nat Phillips. Kabak was okay, man. He was okay. Where do I rank him? Actually, I think I'm going to give him a D. I think I'm going to rank him at D, man. He wasn't great. I think there were a lot higher expectations for him. Was he awful? No. Was he as good as Liverpool fans were probably expecting? No. Like, with him and Nat Phillips, it was kind of Dumb and Dumber, if I'm being absolutely honest, right? Give credit to both of them because they stepped in for the club in a really tough moment. And ultimately, they did help lead Liverpool back into the Champions League. Even though Salah, Thiago coming back, they had a bigger role. But I'm going to give him a D ranking. I think that's fair. Let me know, Liverpool fans. Maybe I'm being a little harsh. Kostas Tsimikas, I'm going to give him... Is a B or a C? I'm going to give him a C. Yeah, I'm going to give him a C. Again, able deputy for Robertson. Never really lights the world on fire when he does play. Doesn't really get the chance to play that often because Robertson, for the most part, is that guy for them. He had some good games this season in particular because Robertson kind of dropped off this year. But I don't think it's a surprise that after this season, Liverpool will be looking for a new left back because Tsimikas is just kind of okay. I'll give him a C. Honestly, I think I'm happy with C. Thiago, I'm going to give Thiago Alcantara a B. Now, for Liverpool fans, I'm sure this is a massive shame because when you talk about pure natural footballing ability, this guy right here is one of the best footballers to ever sign and play for Liverpool Football Club. Technical ability, he's on a different level. He is on a different level. And when he signed from Bayern, he signed as I think it was, well, he wasn't the man of the match officially, but he was probably the best player for them in that Champions League final against PSG, ran the show, and he came in as one of the best midfielders in Europe. His understanding of the game, his reading of the game, his outrageous technical ability, his passing range, his eye for a goal at times, the eye for the spectacular. He just oozed charisma, oozed class. Like, he's a different level of footballer, in my opinion, to most of the guys Liverpool had in that midfield, because you were going from, no offense, but Wijnaldum, Henderson, Emre Can, Fabinho, all really good players. But the Thiago, my goodness. Now, the only reason he's a B is ultimately the injuries. And that has haunted Thiago his entire career. He's missed so many games throughout his career due to injuries. And it's a shame, because I truly believe this guy right here would have gone down as one of the best midfielders of all time. Like, in terms of ability, I actually think he is up there. He is incredible. But the injuries just never allowed us to see the best of him week in, week out. But he still had his moments, right? That season where Liverpool were on for a quadruple, Thiago next to Fabinho was absolutely massive for them, right? He had this one game against Man United in the Premier League where, honestly, it's one of the most commanding one-man shows in midfield I've ever seen from a Premier League midfielder. Was big en route to the Champions League final, big en route to winning the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup final that year as well, too. Thiago was just a brilliant player, but ultimately, I can't put him with these guys because I don't think the impact was enough. Jota, maybe controversially, I'm going to give Jota a B. Maybe some of you guys would put him at A, but I think he has missed a lot of games, Jota. And he's also scored a lot of goals. Give him credit. I actually am of the opinion that Jota, maybe until this season, because this season hasn't been his best, but I was of the opinion that while Jota maybe doesn't score as many goals as Salah or Mane, I actually think at his best, he was probably the best finisher at Liverpool Football Club. Hot take, because I think he could finish on either foot. He was really, really good in the air for such a small guy, and his instincts in and around the box were really, really sharp. Not really the best footballer. I've always kind of thought that about Jota. Like, he's not the most technically brilliant, but as a goal scorer, wow, he almost always seemed to just pop up with the odd goal. Ultimately, I think Jota's a B tier signing. Like, he has come up with big goals. He has come up with goals consistent throughout his Liverpool career, but I don't think he was ever really able to consistently carve out a starting spot week in, week out for him. Like, yes, there were games he started, but he always kind of had someone in front of him, whether it was Firmino, whether it was Mane kind of playing as a false nine at times, whether it was Darwin Nunez, whether it was Luis Diaz playing as a striker. I just always feel like he's kind of been more of like a guy off the bench to pop up with a goal when you need him to. So for that reason, I'm going to put him at B. Now, I'm looking at Shaqiri. I think Shaqiri might be headed towards the C, because when I look at Jota and Thiago, they had more impact than Shaqiri, if we're being real. They were bigger players for Liverpool than he was. So maybe I keep Shaqiri at a C, and even Ox, maybe he has to move down to a C down the line as well too. But for now, I'm going to put him there. Ibu Konate, I'm going to put Konate at A. Since he joined from Leipzig, this guy has been imperious. And yes, there have been the injuries here and there, right? But this season is really the first year where we saw Konate from match day 1 to the end, injury-free. And it's no surprise that it was his best campaign. Him alongside Van Dijk were so ridiculous. Like, physically there, speed there, technique there, passing there, carrying out from the back there, set pieces there. They had everything. They were there and about, best in the league at all of those things. As a partnership, they're ridiculous. Now, Konate, there's always these murmurings that he wants to go back to France, wants to go play for PSG, and we'll go on to see how that kind of plays out. But Konate, I think he's been an A-tier signing. I think he's been absolutely brilliant for Liverpool. Luis Diaz, I give him A. I give him an A-tier signing as well, too. Has he been inconsistent at times? Yes, he has. Last season in particular, right? But his first season at the club, or his first 6 months at the club, was ridiculous. And I think he really gave Liverpool a bit of a spark en route to kind of, A, moving Mane more centrally, and he kind of played as that out-and-out winger, and pushing Liverpool closer and closer to that quad dream that they had. And those first 6 months, my goodness, Luis Diaz was moving like Neymar, bro. The skills, the flicks, the no-looks. Remember, he kept playing that no-look pass. Oh my goodness, he used to spam that. But he was ridiculous. And I think that injury to Arsenal, thanks to Thomas Partey, I think really kind of stopped us from seeing Luis Diaz really at his best week in, week out. And for a year and a half, I don't think we got to see the best version of Luis Diaz. I think it took him a long time to recover. And even this season, right? It wasn't the first 6 months of Luis Diaz that we saw. But I think he's done a really good job this year of kind of changing his game up, getting himself more goal-oriented, playing almost as an upfront on his own, playing as a false nine at times, and really being crucial to Liverpool this season. He popped up with so many goals, especially in the first half of the season. And you look at his output this year. Outside of Salah, he's been Liverpool's most consistent attacker in terms of output. So, I don't know, man. I give him an A. I think he's been really big for Liverpool. I give him an A. Arthur, I got to give him an F. I got to give him an F. You guys might say, maybe just put him D, right? But loan signing to play 13 minutes as a substitute in an entire season, that is actually pathetic. That's actually pathetic. And Arthur's time post-Barcelona has just been so bizarre, so difficult to kind of sum up in words, man. F-tier signing for me, man. Arthur, for the life of me, I can't understand what happened post-Barca, because there was a period at Barca where he was a brilliant player, really showed a lot of promise. But that spell at Liverpool just never really impressed, or never even played, man. Calvin Ramsey, I'm going to put him at D. I actually like Ramsey, though. I really actually like this kid. I think he has a lot of potential, but he's been on loan the last few seasons, so I'll put him at D. Fabio Carvalho, again, similar to Vandenberg. I think he maybe had a little more expectation. Like, he came in and started playing games, but I always felt he was too lightweight for that Liverpool team. But credit to them. They actually got a good sum back for him, upwards, again, of 25, 26 million pounds from Brentford. And he hasn't really lit the world up at Brentford either. So I'll put him at D. Gakpo, I'm going to give Gakpo a B. I'm going to give Gakpo a B. Again, he's been big for them this season, and it's really been a coming-of-age season for Gakpo. Both the Euros that he had this last summer and the season that he had for Liverpool. I really think he finally kind of found himself in the system. And I give a lot of credit to Slot to kind of turning him back into the left winger that was dominating the Eredivisie a few years ago. Because I think under Klopp, Klopp actually was trying to turn him more into like a center forward, because you look at his build, you look at his frame, and you think, this guy should be a striker. But I don't think he ever kind of fit that mold. I almost always felt like he was Bambi on ice trying to play up front, but on the wing, he really can play, man. Honestly, this guy's shooting technique, his creativity, his ability to kind of drift in and take players on, he's really grown into himself this season at Liverpool. And look, he's a B for now, but I think he definitely has potential in the next few years to kind of be an A-tier signing for Liverpool. You guys might actually think even a B is too low for him, but I'm gonna keep him here for now. Darwin, F. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that, guys. For the expectation, for the fee, for the price tag, everything I just said and more, right? How can you not put him as an F? How can you not? Like, so much expectation coming from Benfica. He lit up the Portuguese league, had a really good record in the Champions League the year before as well, too. But I think with Darwin Nunez, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because you see at times of Darwin, and especially in that first season, and all the talk was, oh, if he ever kind of gets his finishing boots on, there's a real player there. Because look at him. He's fast, he's tall, he's athletic, he's decently technical as well too, right? And he presses so high, and he generates so many chances through his movement. And you think to yourself at times, like, you're looking at someone who should be a really good center forward. Then you see the misses, and there are a lot of misses. I've never seen a player in the Premier League miss as many chances as Darwin Nunez, and miss as many, like, gilt-edged chances as well too, right? The amount of open goals, one-on-ones that he's just completely fluffed are ridiculous. And then the ugly, the headbutt, I think it was in his second game for Liverpool, right? Getting sent off against Crystal Palace. The spats with the manager, right? Basically kind of throwing his toys out the pram towards the end of this season. Honestly, it's so hard to describe him. It's so hard to kind of explain him as a player, but ultimately, the best way I can is an F. He is an F-tier signing for the amount of money that they signed him for, and the fact that he's going to leave after 3 seasons, not really having made too big of an impact, and so many players kind of coming in and taking his position, even though they're not out-and-out strikers. He's an F-tier signing for me, man. Wataru Endo, Endo, man, soldier, absolute soldier. For the fee that they bought him for in a summer where they chased so many defensive midfielders, whether it was Caicedo, whether it was Lavia, Endo was almost seen as like the plan C. Let's just get someone through the door. And at his age, coming from Stuttgart, no one really had any expectation, but Endo, man, that first season, every time they needed him, he came up clutch. And he had some big performances for Liverpool, man. That game against City was ridiculous. Those games against Chelsea, he had Caicedo and Lavia on a leash. Obviously, this season, Gravenberch has kind of been turned into a defensive midfielder, and Endo's opportunities have been less and less, but I think this guy deserves so much credit, because for a guy who had no expectation when he came to the club, the performances he's kind of give for Liverpool have been really, really big, man. So I give him a B-tier signing. Gravenberch, I also give a B. Last season, first season at the club, Klopp couldn't get the best out of him. And to be fair, with Gravenberch, you almost felt like his career was kind of spiraling south. Like, at Bayern, he had a tough time of things. His first year at Liverpool, similar. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, is he ever going to realize the early potential he showed at Ajax? He was a box-to-box nightmare in the Eredivisie, but never really got to show it at Liverpool and Bayern until Slot came in this year, looked at Gravenberch and said, you know what? I couldn't get Zubimendi, but you're going to be my defensive midfielder this year. And he had an amazing season. In particular, the first half of the year, where he was arguably, along Salah, the best player in the league. The level that Gravenberch was playing at for 6 months. I mean, he has been good the second half, but I'm talking the first 6 months. He was unplayable. He was unplayable. And I give so much credit to Slot for identifying him in this role, but also to Gravenberch for accepting this and kind of, look, Adapting to a new role, it requires a manager and it requires a player. So I give him so much credit because this guy's a joke at defensive midfield, man. And I love more than anything how at ease he is in terms of receiving the ball from his defenders and immediately getting play going. I don't think there's anyone in the Premier League better at receiving on the half turn in the first phase and getting his team up the pitch. He moves like Moussa Dembele at times, man. Gravenberch, I give him a B tier signing. But for me, again, Gravenberch and Gakpo, I think they have full potential to one day be A tier signings. I just think, for me, these are their first real breakout years. So I'll respect the guys above them. Mac Allister, though, that is definitely an A tier signing. And I think he's well on course to being an S tier as well, too. In fact, some of you guys might argue he's already there. But again, I'll give credit to these guys for now. But for me, he will end up being an S tier signing. Mac Allister, at 30 million pounds, 35 million pounds, has been one of the biggest bargains of the last few seasons. A World Cup winner, a wonderful player at Brighton, but at Liverpool, he's taken his game up another level. And what I love about Mac Allister is, whether it's playing at defensive midfield, he can do it. Playing as an 8, he can do it. Playing as a 10, he can do it. Popping up with goals, he can do it. Defending, he can do it. Circulating the ball, he can do it. This guy is everything and more in midfield, man. He is so brilliant, but so underrated. The fact that he didn't get nominated for Premier League Player of the Season for me is a travesty. He is ridiculous, and he's so consistently good that at times his brilliance just goes under the radar at times because you get kind of accustomed to how good he is. But my goodness, man, you see the amount of combinations of midfielders he plays with, whether it's Curtis, whether it's Endo, whether it's Szoboszlai, whether it's Gravenberch. He's the constant in there. So good, man. So good, Mac Allister. I think undoubtedly he will go on to be an S tier signing. And then Szoboszlai, similar to Gravenberch and Gakpo, I'm going to put him at A. But with the rumors of Florian Wirtz, I do think like perhaps his position might be the most under threat. Now, Szoboszlai, I give him a lot of credit because his work rate in midfield is second to none. This guy will run himself into the ground. He's an old school Klopp midfielder. But I do think if Wirtz is to come in, he's probably the one who's going to suffer for it the most. However, Szoboszlai this year, right? I think he was integral to Liverpool, man. I don't think Liverpool are as good as they are this year without him. Yes, he isn't your typical creative midfielder like a Bruno or like a De Bruyne. And yes, he's not popping up with 10, 15 goals a season. But the work rate that this guy provides for that Liverpool midfield is invaluable, man. It's invaluable. And to be fair to him, too, he had some big moments this year. Big goals, notably against Spurs in that one game. Has a really good partnership with Salah as well, too. I really like the partnership that they've kind of formed. But I'm going to leave him at B as well, too. So, guys, this is my Liverpool tier list in terms of ranking every player in the Jurgen Klopp era. As I said at the beginning of the video, this is relative to other Liverpool signings. So don't talk to me about Man United signings, City signings. It's just compared to their contemporaries. Let me know if you guys would change anything else, right? Maybe you could convince me that Shaqiri should be at B, or maybe you keep Shaqiri at C and you move, I don't know, Endo and Ox to C. Who knows? But I'm actually happy with the most part for most of this, guys. Let me know down below what you agree with, what you don't disagree with, and more so than anything as well, let me know which team to do next, because the next team that gets voted on the most, that gets the most likes in the comments, will be the next team we rank their signings for. So as always, guys, like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about my tier list, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.